Hey, so I thought I'd do an impromptu live stream. I have a feeling not many people will be here for this. I don't think that YouTube tells me my audience is typically on 12 hours from now, so it's also a holiday here in the US. So, but I had this inkling to revisit this library management system project that I built, I guess, about 3 years ago. I'm not sure exactly, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. It was one of the first video series that I made on YouTube. And I know a lot of people found the channel through this particular project. And to be honest with you, I haven't actually pulled the project back open much since creating it. I did revisit it a few times, maybe a year after I made it, just to kind of take a look at how things were. I think I updated it from whatever I did in the series to .NET Core 2.0. But I have a feeling that I would do some things differently now if I were to build this project again from scratch. And I also thought, why not upgrade it to .NET Core 3.0? And so that's what we're going to do on this stream, is take a look at the project for the first time in some time, and also see if we can upgrade it from .NET Core 3 or from 2 to 3. So hopefully this works out for us. I do have some time this evening to give this a shot. Like I said, I haven't actually looked at this project much over the years since I made it, but since so many people have visited the YouTube series, I thought it deserves a refresher and a second look a few years later. So let's dive in and take a look. I've already pulled up Microsoft Docs on how to migrate from ASP.NET Core 2.2 to 3.0, so hopefully that'll come in handy. And I've pulled the project down as well into my projects directory. So let's take a look at what I have done in this project. So I did create separate projects here for the data layer. It looks like a service layer, some tests, and the web project. I have a feeling that when I made this, I did a few things that I would do differently these days. Although the project works fine in its own right, I suppose. But I think there are some improvements that we could probably make here. So first of all, I'm noticing that my web project is depending on the data layer, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like I said, the project works, but I would probably want to completely decouple the HTTP stuff, the web layer here, where the controllers live, from the data access layer, and probably have the service layer, as it probably already does, act as a sort of intermediate layer between the data access layer in this old project from the web layer, where like I said, where the HTTP stuff lives. And I believe this was also a standard MVC project where I was using Razor. Like I said, it's been years since I actually took a peek at what's in here. But I suppose that this is okay. I hope this is a shared. It's interesting that I'm putting Bootstrap CDN stuff in a single view, whereas I think that this could be shared. So already I'm seeing some stuff even in the presentation layer, but I didn't intend on looking at the presentation layer just yet. So let's see. The other thing that looks kind of weird to me is that I have interfaces for my services in the data access layer, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I think the first thing that I'm going to do here, I'm just going to hack away at this. Maybe I should create a separate branch. We'll call this branch live stream updates. And then I'll work in this branch, and then if this ends up being a complete failure of an upgrade, then we always have master branch, and then hopefully it's close enough to what the video is. There's no way that I'm going to go back and watch any part of that series, but yeah, I'm super happy that it's been useful for some people. I just probably would have done things a lot differently. So that's what this live stream is about. Hey Vic, yes, I can see that. Thanks for visiting the live stream. All right, so what I'm going to do here, first of all, is I'm going to add a directory for interfaces, for lack of a better structure at the moment, in the service layer, and then we're going to move these interfaces out of data access. And what is this? Is the entire, no, okay. Checkout history, checkout service. Should probably also see if I can still run migrations. This is going to be interesting. All right, well, at the very least, I'm going to move the interfaces for the services out of the data access layer and move them into the service layer. And I hold services in here as well. To be honest, I don't remember much about the structure of this project. Thanks, Vic. I enjoy making them. I'm glad that you enjoy them. Are there any types of videos that you'd like to see me make? The other thing that's interesting is well, let's see here. I don't like putting annotations in line like that, so we're going to move that. I wonder if the others are the same. Sort of. Let's see. Hey, Krom. I will say that I'm not sure how often I've actually visited, like specifically visited projects that I've built this far into the past. Obviously, the interesting thing about preserving a record of building projects on YouTube or anywhere really is that someone comes along and sees them for the first time, and they might as well be new, even if I made it 3 years ago, and would do some things differently now. So I think this is kind of a fun exercise. Starting out with some pretty superficial changes here in formatting to begin with. Every time I say layer, that's funny. If you want me to play along, I'll add a whole bunch of layers to the project. Although tonight I'm just drinking water, mineral water. Vic, you're looking for TDD Angular videos. That's not a bad idea. If you're interested in TDD, well, first of all, I'd recommend Kent Beck's book on test-driven development, which I revisited recently. But not to plug my own video, I did do a TDD series with Python. That's probably not what you're looking for. But yeah, that sounds like a good idea. I just started actually looking at Angular again recently. I think the last time I looked at Angular, we were on Angular 3 or 4. So it's been a couple of years. But I enjoy the Angular front-end framework for sure. All right, so we made some superficial changes here, except for the fact that we move interfaces. Okay. So let's see here. We have interfaces. I didn't move this one for the service. I should read more carefully. And now let's see. Book service. Send a link to Python TDD. We're going to do this one live. I wonder if I pop up my own search results for Python TDD. Probably not. There are a lot of better videos out there, I'm sure. Maybe if I add my own name to it. Here is that series. The issue, most videos don't show the entire life cycle of the development and testing. I totally agree with that. But I also understand sort of why that's the case. Well, not necessarily for testing. I think that most people don't show testing in videos because, quite frankly, it's not as widely adopted as it should be as a practice. I mean, I think there are some really great testing videos out there. But a lot of people, I would say, come to YouTube probably want to learn to code, and when you're just learning, and this isn't necessarily the way I think it should be, but when people are first learning, they kind of don't even really probably know about tests. They're kind of probably just trying to get an idea for the syntax of the language and some general programming concepts. But I totally agree with you that when it comes to application development, there's a lack of resources for testing or for writing unit tests. Certainly TDD. There are a lot of other great resources out there, like Kent Beck's book that I mentioned. I think Gary Bernhardt has some good videos on testing, on TDD specifically. And then as far as like the life cycle of development, I agree with that as well. And I think the reason there is just because it's, at least from my own experience, it's difficult to build a big project and actually record the building of that project, I would say. And also like, sometimes it can get kind of repetitive. I know this from making my own courses and stuff. Like if you're building an application that has, well, I don't know, I'm kind of rambling here, but a lot of the classes, they look super similar in structure, or a lot of methods might feel kind of repetitive if you are trying to put this into a video format, because it's kind of just like the grind of coding, Yeah, thank you so much for the recommendation. I will definitely do that. I'll definitely make more videos about testing. Actually, earlier this evening, I was just finishing a video working on a testing project for productive dev, so I will certainly bring more of that to YouTube. All right, so it's interesting that I have a couple of interfaces here for iAsset type. Oh, I kind of remember the iAsset type. I think this was because the way the database was structured to have a discriminator column with an abstract base class on the library resource. Like I think there are multiple types of resources, like, or what was it called? Library asset. We had books, videos, at least books and videos. Hey, Big B. Yeah, it's good to see you here. Thanks for dropping in. I'm not sure how long I'll do this live stream. Hopefully, at least for a while this evening. But what I'm trying to do now is to sort of revisit this project and look at how I would do things differently now. And then maybe after this video is done, I'll make a properly edited video just from scratch about the changes that I made and the changes that I would recommend in this project. Okay, so what to work on next? Pretty sure that one thing that I would do differently here is my service class, my service layer is returning. Thanks, Farisa. My service layer is returning entity objects to its clients. So I have a feeling these are called these are called from the tests, and I don't recall exactly how Razor syntax works, but I have a feeling that, for instance, in the catalog view, for instance, if I look at the detail page, we are probably, let's look at the controller actually, probably returning the entity models. And that's something that I would do differently. I would not probably put my entity models or sort of mix them with the view layer unless I put models in here. Okay, I did put models in here. but what I'm doing is selecting from those entity models into some detail model, which is a view model, I suppose. And that's not such a bad thing, but what I would do differently is, since I have this proxy of a service layer, is I would probably do the mapping from like a DTO, or do the mapping from an entity model to some DTO that I can then use, that I can then either parse out again into a view model or just use the DTO directly in the view, depending on what made more sense. So can I do some type of useful refactor here for this? If I'm going to do the DTOs, I could use AutoMapper, which isn't part of this project. That would make the mapping a lot easier. All right. The other thing I would like to do is to create a model for the service response, so that my services are returning some type of uniform shape, like response type. And I didn't see that I was doing any type of validation or exception handling. I realized that I made this as sort of a minimal demo project, but there are some important things that I think are missing. Okay. So maybe I'll just code on this for a little while. If anyone has any questions whatsoever, just holler. Okay, I think what I might do here is to start by adding a new project called library models, and we're going to start from here as the sort of shared library models. Oops. Oh, I see what I'm doing. Oops, class library. Why don't I use Visual Studio? I sometimes use Visual Studio. I use it at work, but that's because we specifically have a lot of tooling built into our project for use with Visual Studio. And we're also using an old, long story short, I do like using Rider for my own projects. I think it's just a nice IDE, but there's really not much of a difference between this and Visual Studio. I think Rider's a bit of a newer IDE, and I think that I think that it's a little more lightweight. At least it feels that way than Visual Studio. But Visual Studio is a good IDE for sure, of course. So the other thing I'm going to do is make this a pagination result, because I don't think I'm doing any pagination at all in this application. If we look at the controllers, branch controllers, I'm just calling getAll from the service, which is just returning in a new INumerable library branch. Let's fix all the namespaces in the solution. The other thing is, I think the Vim emulation in Rider is a little bit better than the Vim plugin in Visual Studio. Oh, sorry to hear that you were stuck on the migrations, Big B. Those can be kind of a pain. And in fact, it'll probably be a pain for me to run migrations here, which reminds me that I should probably change my app settings. I'm working on a Mac, and I think I was previously working on Windows, where I was running on LocalDB with Microsoft SQL. But yeah, I'll need to change this to Postgres here, which reminds me, yeah, so there's quite a lot I could do here. I wonder if I should make myself a checklist. All right, let's make a checklist. All right, so let's us update to the recent version of .NET Core, and I think .NET 5 is coming out before the end of the year, at which point they're going to drop the core naming convention, and they're skipping over 4, I think, because of .NET Framework 4 to avoid any confusion. Add pagination. John Craig, I hear you on that one. Mixed results. Yeah. Dapper is supposed to be really slick. I think quite honestly, I've never used it. I've been meaning to check it out. I'm finishing up a course at the moment with pretty clean separation between data access and using the repository pattern, and I think I could just rewrite the repository implementation for a Dapper version, and I intend on checking it out. Let's see. How has it gone for you? You say mixed results. Did you have problems with Dapper in particular, or check up on tests? Address some naming issues. So let's see. Oh yeah. Migrate to Postgres for cross-platform support. And I'll probably add a Docker Compose file for running Postgres, and maybe we could even containerize the app. But this checklist is already getting pretty long. All right, as soon as I fix the current thing, which isn't really fixing anything yet, but I'm going to make a pagination result here. And for a pagination result, we'll make this a generic, and so we're just going to create a POCO for the pagination result. What can we do here? Int per page and int page number. I see. Yeah, SQL definitely does have a learning curve. I actually learned SQL. Sorry about my audio. I actually learned SQL before I learned .NET. All right, so, and of course there's always more to learn, right? Like I didn't learn all of SQL before I learned .NET, and there's always more to learn. So I have these contexts. I have my DB context in the service layer, which I guess is fine. I didn't do any type of repository here. Okay. It's kind of interesting to be doing a refactors and updates live because I lose a bit of concentration. But just having fun, so it doesn't matter too much. All right, before I get too far down this particular task, what I'm going to do is okay, I think I want to try to do this migration from 2.2 to .NET Core 3. And I'm not even completely positive what version of .NET Core I originally wrote this in or what I've updated it to since. Okay, 2.1. So let's see if Microsoft's docs are going to be helpful for us here. I suspect that they'll be pretty good. I don't think that it's going to be too much of an undertaking. Although, now that I've said that, I should have probably read some of this first. All right, set the target framework to .NET Core App 3.0. So I assume that this is going to be in the CS-Prosh. Yep. All right, .NET Core 3. Wonder if I can set it to 3.1 if the docs are just have the vestigial. Let's take a look at. Yeah, I think I could technically do like whatever the latest 3 is, 3.2, 3.3, not sure, but we're going to go with 3.1. Prerequisites. We're going to pretend like we're using Visual Studio Code, at least for the purposes of this doc. And I would use Visual Studio for Mac, except that it doesn't have Vim key bindings, it doesn't have a plugin that's currently working for the current version. All right, so remove obsolete package references. Large number of NuGet packages aren't produced for Asp Net Core 3. Such package references should be removed from your project file. Consider the following Microsoft app, Razor design. Do I have Razor? I suspect that I have all kinds of, well, of course I have Razor, but do I have this Razor design, Razor view compilation? So then there is the updated Asp Net Core 3 project file, property group, updates to .NET Core app, asset target fallback. I don't recall seeing that in .NET Core 3 projects. Microsoft ASP.NET Core.app is removed. There's quite a lot of editing going on here, and I suspect that all this 2.1.1, let's see if the NuGet package manager built into my IDE can help out here. If there isn't a 3 for the stuff that I have installed, I assume that I don't need to have this in my project anymore. Hey Baylor, I don't know how super helpful it's going to be watching me fumble through an update that I've never done before, but I hope that it provides an example of a developer trying to update a .NET project. Hey Vic, if you would be interested in that, I do have a more in-depth course over at Udemy. I'm not trying to overly plug it. I'm just suggesting that if you're looking for something in-depth, and as you say, if you would pay for it, I do have a pretty affordable course over at Udemy where I do end-to-end, as you say, app development with .NET Core Web API, Vue.js front end, end-to-end tests with Cypress. Okay, so we are going to remove a bunch of packages and break a lot of things before they work again. But it's just software, and it's just a branch. I think that all this stuff that used to be in separate libraries is now just part of Microsoft, whatever the main package is. Actually, yeah, a lot of this is going to be gone, I have a feeling. Newtonsoft is still around and going strong. Report generator, I'm not sure what that is. I suspect that has to do with code coverage. Send link. All right. I don't really know what my link is. But if you go to Udemy and find my course, I don't know what the price is going to say for you. I think Udemy. Okay, cool, Vic. So yeah, that would be the one that I was just talking about. Make sure to link and plug your affiliate link so you get 90%. Arts with Sarash. Yes, I will continue this series, but my plan is to do a live stream tonight to just sort of hack through some updates and see what I'm in for, and then make a properly edited video. I felt like this project deserved a little bit more attention because of the fact that I think I'm really flattered that a lot of people have watched it, but it's not necessarily how I would have built the project 3 years later, and it's also a bit outdated. So I'm going to try to make an update. All right, so I'm going to watch the code. Issue with my site was that I didn't include Jenkins. Yeah, I need to do more DevOps. You're right about that. Okay, I'm gonna just get rid of all this Asp Net Core stuff. Except for Asp Net Core itself. Is that even required anymore? I don't even think that's. I think we just use the target framework. I wonder what else is. Entity framework core.design. I'm pretty sure that's still the case. So let's refresh these packages. I'm not even sure where I would have been using report generator. I have a feeling, like I said, that's for coverage. Well, Vic, when I do include Jenkins, I will be the first to let you know. All right, let's see. Report generator. Oh yeah, this is used with Cobertura and stuff. Okay, or .cover. I was probably using .cover. I think Cobertura is just maybe Java only, but let's see. We're going to get rid of the report generator here. And what was I using? I think I was using... All right, Vic, for this project, I wasn't using Jenkins, but I was using Travis to check that my builds were passing. So there's a little bit of CI in there for you. And as mentioned, I'm breaking stuff this evening. That's to be expected. CodeCov for code coverage 2 years ago. That's not looking bad. The code is not looking great, but the tests are looking good. Web browser link. I doubt that this is a thing, and I doubt that that's a thing. We are in slash and burn mode until this thing gets on 3. SQL Server, I think that, well, first of all, we're going to use Postgres now to be completely cross-platform. NET Framework.tools and design, these things still are around. The versions, I think, mirror the current versions of .NET. So what we're going to do is find them in here, Microsoft Entity Framework Design and Tools. Oh, and you can see .NET 5 preview's already out. EF Tools is now based to EF Core, so it can go design is standalone, so it needs to stay updated. Nice, thanks for that. We're going to try out 3.1.5. I'm excited for .NET 5. I'm excited not to have to call it core. Oof, all right. Just to minimize. All right, we'll get rid of tools if we need to get rid of it, but for now I'm gonna upgrade it. Upgrade. Likewise, I don't know why I didn't just I could just change the file here. Let's see. Package restore failed. I have a feeling it's gonna be incompatible with some stuff. Ay. Hey, the Bayless code, thanks. Thanks for passing through. I'll make a properly edited video at some point after we get this thing updated. But I hope you're doing well, and I appreciate it. Let's just manually do this, and we'll run the CLI. What was it, 3.1.4, 3.1.4, Microsoft Asp Net Core, coveralls. Coveralls is fine. Maybe I could rethink about that at some point as well. We're going to keep it as simple as possible and remove everything that I don't think that we need. Also, I do want to get rid of this reference to the data layer so that we don't put entity models in our controllers where they do not belong. Let's see what happens when we run .NET Update. Is it .NET Update? .NET Restore? I should know the CLI better. We're going to run clean. One error. It cannot be referenced by project. That is old. So let's just go ahead and update csproj and all of the dependents as well. This one should be easier. And to be honest with you, I'm going to do a quick scan through of what Microsoft says is entailed here before I... Okay, we know we're going to have to update the startup.cs for sure. Migrate Kestrel to this builder lambda. That's right, I think at some point you had to add a lot of things specifically which are now part of the default builder. Wow, there's actually quite a lot. And having just worked in a .NET Core 3 project recently, what I'm going to do is reference the docs when I run into problems. I'm going to close all this. And, oh, there used to be so many dependencies. And why are there so many dependencies in this particular project? So we're on 3.1 now. I'm going to remove all dependencies. This project is very small. and it should not require many dependencies. So let's go ahead and edit the CSProj here. We're gonna bump this to 3.1. And sure, just go ahead and throw EF Core in every layer. Just kidding. All right, so we'll do this. Edit the CSProj here. Okay, using NUnit might be cool to move over to XUnit, but there's nothing wrong with NUnit. There's certainly nothing wrong with NUnit. I have a feeling that this EF Core in-memory database also mirrors the... so I could just change all 2.1.1 to 3.1.4, whatever it was. Of course, most of these don't even exist anymore. That's what we're going to do. I'm going to just till everything up. All right, 3.1 portable application icon. That's interesting. You're wondering if I had a video for Vue login register with backend.NET Core API, and it would be in the pipeline down the road. That is 100% in the pipeline for a new series that I'm working on that I can't say much about right now, but that I will be announcing before the end of July. That incorporates a number of different backends and a number of different front ends, but starts out with a Vue front end. And then what I'm going to do is create modular sections to the various courses to sort of plug in new features like authentication or search and that sort of thing. Hey Albano, that's really awesome to hear. I hope that the updates will be useful for you. This evening it's just going to be kind of hacking away and seeing what it entails, but I'll provide a properly edited video at some point, hopefully the next couple of weeks, maybe a week or so, depending on how far we get. Where I won't put any of the stream in, but I'll go through and make a proper video to help people make the updates. All right, so do I have NET Core 3 and everything now? Edit CSProj 3.1. Edit CSProj 3.1. This is not necessarily how I would be working, I think, if I was not live streaming. Kind of keep losing the thread, but like I said, we're just having fun. All right, so I really don't know what this asset target fallback is. Portable net 4.5. It looks like it's going to try to run this on .NET Framework, Windows 8. Oof, I don't know what that is. And that wouldn't work on my current operating system. Let's go ahead and try to build the solution and see what's failing. Okay, just one or two things. It's because I removed all of the references. So let's start in the data project DB context. This came from EF Core. So we're gonna use the magic of Rider here to install EF Core in this project. And we'll work our way, instead of a top-down approach, we'll take a bottom-up approach to adding the dependencies. All right. Can I count the number of errors that I have and watch them go down? That would be useful. Library data. All right, let's build again. If I can't count the errors, then I will just watch them go down, hopefully. All right, migrations. We're going to destroy the migrations folder. All right, so build succeeded in the data project. Let's try to build models. Models is kind of a smoke test because there's absolutely nothing in here. So if this breaks, then something is severely wrong. That one's good. Now let's build the service layer. That one appears to be good. Test is going to be broken because I completely got rid of NUnit and everything in there. Let's look at how I wrote tests 2 years ago. DB Context Option Builder does not contain a definition for use SQL Server. That is correct because I got rid of that. So we can install MaQ, and the test attribute is an NUnit thing. Let's see here. So what did I do? I made a mock iLibrary branch service, and here I am testing a controller. I will definitely make the, thanks for the suggestion, Albano. I will definitely make the video easy to follow if that's what you're asking. It will be nothing like this live stream where I'm just hacking away. This was from that Fluent, what was this should? This was Fluent, not Fluent Assertions, maybe? Fluent Assertions? I don't remember the name. Baylor, I don't know if you're still in the room, but if you remember the name of the sort of builder type syntax Fluent API for testing. I think it was called Fluent Assertions. I could just check NuGet. All right, I probably want to make these XUnit at this point as well. And I'm just taking a look at these tests. They don't look horrible, but I may change the structure a bit. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to delete the tests because I have a feeling the structure of the app is going to change a bit. The tests will not take very long to write. Now I'll try to build the web project. Web project is probably going to fail. Okay. So we're going to change this. Let's go ahead and edit the CSproj again. There's not much in here. I want to connect to Postgres. So we're going to manage NuGet packages here and look for NPGSQL. And super impressed by NPGSQL at having a .NET 5 alpha ready already. Hey Moises, thank you for watching. Let's see if I can go to oh, I don't think, yeah, here I just want to add Entity Framework Core. Version 3.1.4, I believe. And then in the data project, I want to add NPGSQL. And I want to make sure that I have the right library for this. Oh, I think I need NPGSQL Postgres. Yeah, here we go, 3.1.4. We're going to install this one. And then in my app settings, .development.json, which overwrites app settings. So yeah, I should probably put the connection strings in both, and I like those below my logging for whatever reason. All right, we no longer use a connection string in the SQL Server format, but we're going to use it in the Postgres format, which runs on port 5432 by default, and we'll just have some dev user admin, password admin, database. We'll call this one library.dev. Okay, I'll call it _dev. And I will also provide that as the default connection strings in app settings. Albano, please, can you make it easy the part of CSS? Yes, I will try. I will definitely try there. Beyond the point of the project, because the project focuses on the logical code and not styling. I agree, but I also, I totally get what you're saying. I think that, yeah, it's useful to have nice starter CSS anyway. So I'll definitely try to make it easy on the part of CSS because the focus is on the application, the back end, if you will. So completely agree, and will do my best. All right, I have a feeling that configure changes as well, and I don't think that there's a logger factory anymore. I think that there is I think that logging is injected, or it might be part of the builder itself. Okay, there's been a lot that's changed in startup.cs in the meantime. So let's take a look at what else is broken here. Compatibility version. I don't know what that's doing. We're going to get rid of it. What we can take a look actually is we could generate what we could look at what a startup.cs looks like just by generating a .NET MVC project with the .NET CLI. So I think that that's probably worth our time. Start targeting 3.1. All right, and then here we need to find the command for .NET New. Oh, and I realized that my web browser is not in the window, so you probably can't see it. But if I put it here, let's look at the command to run .NET New MVC. Can I add a search field? Thank you, Albano. I hope that I'm helpful. I don't know that I always am very helpful, but I appreciate it, and thanks for watching the videos. What I say is asking for a search field. I could do that. Yeah, we could do that. Search is interesting. For an application of this size, it might be sufficient to wire up the search request just to write raw SQL. If we did like free text search, but typically we would delegate search functionality to an appropriate piece of software like Elasticsearch or Solr or something where you'd have an actual inverted index for text search. But it's totally a possibility. So let's run. We want to build an MVC project and we want to see what that looks like. .NET New MVC, I guess. Let's just see what happens. If in a test project, Victor test MVC, and we just run .NET New MVC, let's see what we get out. I'm gonna take a look here and see what the startup, we're gonna go into projects, test MVC, and then let's see what the startup looks like now. So it's very minimal. Add controllers with views. And what's the target framework here? 3.1, that's what we're using. Okay. We're going to make ours look like this and then work our way bottom up again. So just services add controllers with views, and I'll need to add the EF stuff as well. No worries there. Thanks, Albano. Yes, I think that's an excellent point. Adding an easy copy and paste CSS is great, especially since the concern is really just on building the back end. That's a good idea. Actually, that's a really good idea, just for a project like this, just to have like some global CSS that people could paste into the project if they need to. So we still do this startup by configuration. Assume that configuration is coming from the same place. Microsoft extensions configuration, dependency injection, and hosting. So we're going to bring that one in. Maybe it came out of Asp Net Core hosting. No, that's still there. So it's HTTPS policy and builder. Okay, so that's good. And then these are our dependencies. So, or our assemblies rather. So our class libraries. So I think that's going to be good. Determine whether user consent for non-essential cookies is blah, blah, blah. Configure services. I'm going to get rid of this for the time being as well. Services.add MVC. Wonder what this add controllers with views is. Am I in the right project? Yeah, I am. Let's see. I think add MVC is a superset of the functionality of add controllers. I was reading about something like this related recently. We're also not going to use SQL Server. We're going to use NPG SQL. And we'll still get the same connection string. Nice that that was easy enough. We get rid of this logger factory, which is no longer a thing, as far as I'm aware. Probably the whole configure thing is different. Web hosting environment. Isn't it web host environment? Yeah, web host environment. We can get rid of the logger factory thing, which is no longer with us. App.use static files. This we may have to look at again. Assume that this is still a thing though. So we're going to look at the decompiled thing really quickly and just see where it is coming from. Apache license 2. Okay, so that's our static file middleware. And then now we call app.use endpoints, it looks like, instead. And the lambda is endpoints.map controller route with the pattern. Map controller, oops. Map controller route. Okay, we're starting to make a more plausible looking .NET Core 3 startup CS. And yeah, the configuration field doesn't need to be public. In fact, startup takes iConfiguration. Configuration is equal to config. Do we even need an iConfiguration? You know, maybe this does need to be public. Don't know yet. And these could probably be transient. I don't think there's going to be much of a difference in this case, given that we just want them to get disposed once the HTTP request is complete. All right, let's try to build. I'm getting a bunch of emails from Travis that I'm destroying the project. Travis is correct. Hey, Sudi, no, there's no problem asking at all. I am working on adding authentication to that course eventually, hopefully soon, hopefully this summer. I'm working on a few other courses in the meantime, and then I'm going to circle back and make updates to the existing courses. Authentication is usually a pretty big piece, and so I decided to leave it out of the first version of the course, but it's very important as well, so I should come back to it and add it. I still haven't completely decided on the authentication service provider that I'd like to use, so if you have any requests or suggestions there, I would be open to hearing them as well. But thank you for asking. All right, the question is, can we run the application? Clearly we can't run the database just yet because I haven't set it up, which reminds me, maybe we can set that up now. So let's see. All right, we updated to .NET Core 3. That part is pretty much true, but I don't want to say that it's done until the app runs. .NET build. That's right, program.cs gets updated as well with the new builder object. All right, so I think that the new syntax, we still use create web host build. Well, we can name it whatever we want, but this is iHost builder. And I think that we no longer use Asp Net Core itself. And this is just host dot create default builder, pass it those args. We don't say use startup, although that's kind of cool the way that it used to be, although it's pretty interesting the way that it is now too. Configure web host defaults. And then there's a lambda here where we say use startup inside. And then we can also specify URLs that we want to run this thing on, which I wonder, I think back in the day it used to be like this 5-digit port number, but these days all the apps are running on 8000 something, right? So we're going to run on 8001. Also, although no one will probably ever see this or the video that I'm about to reference, but in the Docker Nginx reverse proxy video that I made, I called 0.0.0.0.0 the loopback address, which technically it's not. That just means any address on the host. And the loopback address is typically 127.0.0.1 or whatever it's configured to be. So just making things right on the live stream. All right, I'm pretty sure that this will work. No guarantees. Thank you, Sudi. I'm glad that you're enjoying the course. And I will take a look. I think it's a great suggestion to use ASP.NET Identity. Oof, my legs hurt. I got lost in the woods today. And had to walk through some brambles. Okay, line 10. This is create host builder. Still calling the old one. What am I missing here? Oh, no. Oh my gosh. Apparently I'm getting sleepy. This still isn't going to work. Okay, so we actually have an error in startup. Endpoint routing middleware matches endpoint setup by endpoint middleware, and so must be added to the request execution pipeline before endpoint middleware. Please add endpoint routing middleware by calling applicationbuilder.use routing inside the call to configure. Let us see what the issue is. So is my ordering different here? Use routing, use authorization, use endpoints. Yes, I don't have use routing above use authorization either. I don't even have use authorization. Okay, use HTTPS, use static files, use cookie policy is probably good. Use routing, use authorization. So I think that I need to call app.useRouting here. And app.useAuthentication, although as far as I remember, I didn't put authentication into the library project. Maybe that's something else we can do as well. All right, let's run this again. When this runs, I'll check number 1 off the checklist. Hey, it runs. All right, so that's good. That means we should be able to visit localhost 8000. No guarantees that anything good is going to happen when we do this. But wow, it's like seeing an old friend. I have not run this app in probably 2 years. And by the looks of it, that's about right. Keyword not supported, port 5432, username, parameter, keyword. Oh, there's a typo in our connection string for a database that we're not even running. So there's no problem in that. Port minus 5432, are you kidding me? All right, let's fix that. Let's fix that. And now let's do a couple of things. We're going to create a Docker container that's running Postgres. And we're going to see what changes I made. Git fix connection string upgrade program startup.cs. Okay, so we've updated a .NET Core 3. That much we know, and that much we can be happy with for the time being. Now we need to add pagination. I didn't even say add Postgres, but we're gonna, yeah, I did. We're gonna say it here. So we're gonna see what containers I'm running. I am running a Postgres container already. And I think it's just configured. This is just a development Postgres instance. So I'm not even going to change anything. My dev Postgres username and password are the same. The database, of course, doesn't exist. But what happens? The other thing I'm going to do is, I like using make, but I know a lot of people don't want to use GNU make on Windows, obviously. So maybe I'll just use the regular commands. Did this not work? Oh no, I have to do the checklist. All right, so I think the command is, oh my goodness. Let's see. .NET Core CLI. Moslatermo, you said you learned .NET Core on this project? That's really cool. Hopefully that the upgraded version will be an improvement both in the structure of the application, but also in the code in general. I hope to do a better job here with this update. Most of the time, do you use .NET Core for your own projects? We need to find the migration commands. I think it's .NET add migration. Is that correct? No, add package. Is it new migration? Okay, we're gonna have to look this up, and actually we can look this up from another course that I did here. So we're going to go into projects. And then we'll take a look at the make file that I have in one of these directories. Oh, here it is. So the command is .NET EF, and then we specify the startup project, and then we say migrations. So let us give that one a shot. So we got to go into our data project, and then we run .NET EF, startup project, and the project is library.web, I believe. Migrations, add, and then the migration name. So we're going to say initial. Let's just see if this works. If this works, this means that the Postgres container is already configured properly. Yeah, JF, yeah, for sure. I will have to do this again for .NET 5. Thanks, Learning Initiated, for the command. And that's good to hear, Mosaturmo. I hope that you are hope that you're having fun with your studies. And I hope that you're finding stuff that you like to practice. Dynamic, yes, that was exactly the command that I was looking for. Likewise, Learning Initiated. Thank you, guys. All right, so we added the migration, so we can get rid of the upgrade stuff, which is good, and now we should have a migrations directory here. And hey, it's talking to Postgres. That part's good. And now we can try to run our migrations with .NET EF. Are we in the data project? We are, so we can run .NET EF, startup project, library web, and then database update. Second year, by the way. That's cool. So you're a computer science student. It says, I was actually a mechanical engineer, so I don't know much about the computer science curriculum. How are you liking it so far? You're probably doing stuff like compiler design, operating system. Maybe that's third year. I don't know. Data structures and algorithms. I'm curious to know how you like it. Sometimes I wish I had done computer science as an undergraduate degree just because I find it really interesting, but what can you do? Cannot go back in time. That is what you cannot do. So we added migrations. Masatemuro, is the third year of computer science the hardest? Do you know? I know when I did mechanical engineering, the third year was famously the hardest, and then the fourth year was a little bit easier because it was like projects and maybe more interesting electives. Okay. Dynamic Dev, you were a law student. Wow. All right, so now we're going to go into web and run .NET Run. Dynamic Dev, did you change from law into software development, or? Hey, look at that. We're talking to a database, but it doesn't have anything in it. This abstract base class library asset creates this discriminator class on the tables so that I think there are separate tables. Let's open up pgadmin. I could also open up data grip. Let's just open up pgadmin. Big B, did I learn .NET solely from the Microsoft Docs or other forums? I learned .NET mostly on the job. Honestly, I worked for a company that had a big .NET application, and as such, I kind of had to learn it there. So that, and I had a good friend named Baylor who visits the channel sometimes, who gave me a lot of help learning .NET, and I'm still learning. So here I'm going to try to connect to my other database here. Let's see. What do we call our database, by the way? Library_dev, I believe. That's what I'm going to try. And then we used admin. Most of Termo second and third years are hardest. That makes sense. Well, good luck. Good luck getting through the hardest phase. I'm sure you'll do awesome. Dynamic dev, taught yourself to code, left school, wildly successful band. That's awesome. That is awesome that you were in a band. I used to play music as well. I was not in a mildly successful band, but what type of music did you play? I'm going to try to connect to our newly found database. And I did not mean to actually do that. Or did I? Library dev, schemas, public, tables. Hey, look at that. We have Postgres tables. And I am not upset about that. But what I am upset about, not so much upset, what is interesting is that we've got this library assets folder, or table, relation rather. And if I recall, this contains both books and videos. And there's this discriminator column. So we have this abstract class in our app, thanks to Entity Framework. And this is one of the ways that there's this sort of impedance mismatch between objects and relations. But in our data access layer, we have this book type, for instance, which is a library asset. Killer's U2 style stuff. Very cool. Nice. And library asset is an abstract class, which is just created because, thanks for saying great channel, I appreciate it. So there's this impedance mismatch because we have library asset abstract base class, of which a book is, as well as a video is. And the way that EF Core interprets this, at least with the type of migrations that I generated, I'm pretty sure it's configurable, but it creates a table for the abstract base class itself called library asset, I believe. Library assets, plural. And it puts records for both videos and books in the single relation, and then has a discriminator column here to say what type it is, whether it's a book or a video. And then of course all of the types that specialize the type, library asset, such as video, has a director, but everything else is the same, that's going to have null values. For say another library asset type like magazine or book is not going to have a director. So we get this kind of impedance mismatch, as I said, between class design and SQL relation design, but everything's a trade-off. The other option is to, which I would say I prefer, is to have some duplicate data, in the sense of or I should say, have some duplicate data, but have separate tables for each of the concrete classes that inherit from library asset. So these library asset fields that are on both books and videos, I would actually prefer to have book and video tables that have, columns which have the same type. There's no problem there, but still be able to maintain that abstract base class on the code side. There's a way to do that. But the way this is set up is to use the discriminator column in a single table per base class. July 9th, you have an OS theory exam. You need luck? Yeah, I think anyone would need luck in an OS theory class. I have a book, hold on. Actually, I'm not sure. This isn't an operating systems book, but this is a computer sciencey book called Compilers, which is the Dragon book. Someone who writes compilers, writes a compiler, told me that this book was not the one I wanted, but that was too late. It was the one that I got. And somewhere I have an operating systems book, but to be honest with you, I don't know much about that stuff. So props to you for doing something pretty hard. Okay. So stuff is actually getting hooked up, which I'm happy about. And I want to get rid of the tmux warning. So Postgres is wired up. Add pagination, add service result. I want to add the service result next. Actually, I want to address naming issues next. That one's pretty easy. I like to say do the hard stuff first when it comes to work. When it comes to live streams and coding in front of people, I'm just kidding. I like to do the easy stuff first. All right, so we're going to come into the service layer. Deleted test, that takes care of the naming stuff there. Data helpers, let's see what's going on in here. So if there's a helper thing, I'm gonna make a namespace for it. Alvaro Sanchez asks, might be stupid, but doesn't a single table with discriminator column save the need of future joins? It does, yeah. Let's see, by doing that, so performance trade-off, not only maintenance, or did I get it wrong? Yeah, there is that trade-off for sure. And sometimes it makes sense to denormalize data in order to improve performance in general. That's a pretty common trade-off pattern, and I think you're right. Okay. So data helpers comes in here. We're going to update the namespace. All right, feels good to stop messing with configuration stuff right now and start to actually work on the refactor of the code. So link for eaches are ugly, so I'm going to not do a link for each. They're not ugly. I don't know why I said that. They're so what I do, the syntax that I do not like is this link query syntax. Some people do like this. There's this from blank in blank, let blank, let blank, let blank, let blank, select to list. This is link query syntax. I like link method syntax. Which I wonder if, yeah, I like link method chaining. This one is a little bit more readable for me. Clearly this is like a really sort of functional syntax. Which is maybe less readable than a traditional for loop, in my opinion. So I'm going to keep this as a for each. I think that it is more readable. I might redo the way that I, in general, calculate hours, but that has nothing to do with that method. So we're going to add some documentation here. Well, we don't need to add documentation to humanize business hours. It's pretty clear what that does. This we could just turn into an expression. This we could also turn into an expression. If I'm not mistaken, we can just do this. All right, so that one's good. Enrique, method syntax is your favorite as well. I agree. I think it's kind of cool that they came up with this sort of. I mean, I suppose it's interesting that they came up with this query syntax, but I find it hard to read, and it's sort of like SQL with the syntax inverted, like the grammar is a little bit different, but I don't like it as much as I like SQL, and I don't like it as much as I like method chaining syntax in LINQ. All right, just formatting some stuff here to do the non new line curly braces, which I just recently changed my opinion on. All right, data helpers, book service, checkout service. All right, so I think we're good on naming for right now. Let's check out the other libraries, models. We started this pagination result, data, data models, asset type. Where is this even used? Not used. We're going to get rid of it. checkout history, where is this used? Not used. We're going to get rid of it. Can you believe that I had unused stale code in a project for 2 years without even losing sleep over it? I cannot believe it. Okay, library branch, library card, patron. The other thing I might do is take the attributes that do validation on these data annotations out of the class and use Fluent Validations, which is a nice library that I've been using lately, and keep these POCOs as lightweight as they possibly can be. All right, so we're going to make a quick commit here. And we'll say naming issues are handled for the time being. Add a service result. So one of the things that I don't like about the way that I made this was that my services just kind of talk in, well, first of all, they're handing back entity models, but second of all, there's no uniformity to their response type. And if we're going to be using a typed language, why not use types for stuff where it really kind of matters, like in our service layer, for instance, and the way that it talks to its clients. So I'm going to make a service result model in the service layer. So we're going to add a directory here, models for the service layer, and I'm going to add a class, service result. I'm curious to know how people originally found my channel and what video did they find it on, and what kind of stuff should I make in the future? Those are all different questions, I suppose. Remember to ask again. All right, so I want to make a service result model that I can use to speak service language to the rest of the app. And I'm also going to make a paged service result for when the service wants to respond with paginated data. Slightly nuanced, but it's just the way that it is that I would like. We'll have an isSuccess in case the service result wants to say that it didn't succeed for some reason. And then we're going to have we'll make this a generic. So service result can just wrap some type that it wants to send back. Otherwise, these are going to have standard auto properties. And maybe we'll make a service error. And do I need an isSuccess if I have a service error? Probably not. But I could I ever have a successful service response with a service error? No, I couldn't. So they're distinct things, I suppose. And anywhere where I want to check if something wasn't successful, I could just check that service error was null, for instance. So we'll make a service error. And the service error can just be a really super simple thing. It doesn't even need to be generic for anything. This is just a little DTO in its own right for sending an error message. And maybe the stack trace. Whoa, Big B, you found this thing. You found the original video like 3 years ago. That's neat. In JF, Kansas, looking how to wire up a service layer, I built an auto shop management app based off of this. Oh, no way, that is so cool. Well, now hopefully, well, I don't know whether you can or not, but you can update it after I finish the updates here. I'm sure that you could do a fantastic job making updates and upgrades to it on your own as well. .NET Core with Angular dashboards. Nice. I miss the days a little bit of doing .NET, or rather doing Angular to some extent, although I really like Vue these days. Alvaro says, in my case it was something about Vim and Tmux for Django. Whoa, that's going way back too. I think that was a really early video. Nice. All right. So we have this service error that we can make use of. Page service result is just going to be a service result wrapper, if you will, around our paginated data. So it's essentially going to take the same shape, except that rather than T here, I'm going to abstract that pagination service result, or rather the pagination result, into the type. And that way we don't have like, this I think just makes it in general a little bit easier. So what can I say here? Like this serializes data for all service level responses that use paginated data. Have you guys watched any good shows lately or films? I recently just finished watching the Netflix series Dark, which was really good. Something I've also watched for the last 3 years, I guess, 2 years, however long it's been on for those 3 seasons. It realizes data for all services level data that use non-paginated data. Okay. So now I want our service layer to talk service result response instead of, this non-typed, well, not non-typed, but non-uniform response interface. Using VS on a Mac. Yeah, that's interesting. I gave it a shot for like 5 minutes just to kind of see what it was like, and I also didn't enjoy using it on a Mac. All right, so what I want to do now is, what time is it here? No, it's not too late. We're going to update interfaces, or sorry, the namespaces for everything. And rather than return a book, first of all, I want to return a book DTO, but I want to return a service result with that book DTO, if that makes sense. I don't just want to pass, certainly don't want to pass the entity model back. I want the service layer to do all the translation. We can use Automapper for that. But I also want it to speak service result responses. Watching Tron, nice. Dev. So this was a project that I built about 3 years ago as part of a series on YouTube, and I am currently going through and doing some refactoring to bring it up to speed to .NET 3. And on the front end, I was using Razor, and I'll still be using Razor in this case. So this was maybe not before Blazor, actually around the time maybe Blazor was released, although I have a feeling this may be slightly before then. Either way, we're using Razor, and I'm just going to stick with that for this upgrade. But it's not using any type of single page application framework or anything like that. It's better now? Nice, JF. The only thing that it doesn't have, as far as I'm aware, that I enjoyed using, or like I said, when I only play with it for like 5 or 10 minutes, but I couldn't get Vim key bindings working, even with the extension. So it was short-lived on my machine for the time being. Okay, look at all the behavior in this checkout service. Is checked out. Get number of copies. Also, are the implementations using async? They're not. We could also make async. I'm going to add that to my... Yeah, and I guess I can also knock out adding the Docker Compose. That one won't take very long. What did I even do? I just updated the checklist, essentially. Paste special, where you can convert JSON to C# properties. Nice. I didn't even know about that, honestly. I didn't even know that was a thing in the real Visual, not the real, in the Windows Visual Studio. All right, let's add the, we can get rid of this pane. Let's add the Docker Compose.yaml. And let's write a quick Docker Compose file. And I already have a Docker Compose file for running Postgres locally. Let's just start with that one. And the most recent one that I have is maybe in productive dev / solar coffee. Did I put one in this directory? Probably not. Well, I have a secret project which will be announced officially at some point called stacked. And let's copy the compose file from there into here. And then we'll move the docker compose Postgres to docker compose.yaml. And we'll use this one, except for this stuff. The Postgres database is library dev, same user and admin. We don't need to do startup scripts in this case. And we can persist the Postgres data to a Docker volume, restart on failure, all good. So now anyone can very easily spin up a Postgres database when developing on this app. So that makes it easier for whoever wants to play around with this. Would not recommend using that Docker Compose to run a Postgres container in production though. I just would not. There's a web API that's all JSON. You can paste special into VS and it builds a class with all the key value pairs. Oh, that is cool. That's a cool use case. Weather API. I see. Nice. Okay. Does anyone know how long I have been streaming? I don't even have the... Oh, it looks like 1 hour and 47. I'm going to stream for another little while. Maybe until I knock out this checklist. Maybe before then. How has my Udemy experience been? Oh, that's cool, John Craig. You found just looking for .NET Core 2. Yeah, I love working in .NET. I think I built my YouTube audience, you guys, and others around .NET in particular. I think that seems to be the largest share of what people who've subscribed to the channel are interested in. And so it's kept me motivated to keep working on .NET even when it hasn't been what I do at work, which is usually in other frameworks like a lot of Node and Python at the moment, and cloud. And Big B asks, how was my Udemy experience? So far, so good. I mean, Udemy is an interesting platform. I've ever heard of Tim Corey. I feel like I have heard of Tim Corey. He has a Blazor server app that uses it. Not Time Corey. I don't know who that is, but Tim Corey. Yeah, I feel like I have heard of this guy. Yeah. I've seen this. I've seen him on YouTube a lot. That's fantastic. Are his courses good? I obviously haven't taken them. Cool. Well, I hope my courses can stand up to Tim Corey's as well. He looks like he's doing an awesome job. All right, so let's see. We need to add a service result. We did that, but we haven't implemented it. Add pagination. Check up on tests. Tests are now gone. I will have to write tests. Make service layer, web layer async. Okay, that's going to go hand in hand with the service result as well, since we'll be working in the service layer. Okay. So even though I said service result, we'll start with this, and this means we're going to have to update the interfaces for everything. All right, so we're going to make this stuff async. There's no problem there. We'll obviously have to make the calls to this class asynchronous as well. So my update video for this course or series of videos is going to be numerous, I would say, for all of these updates, but this was well worth a revisit. I definitely wouldn't have built a project exactly like this, but I'm glad that it's a good start. Okay, library, DB context, add book. All right, so what we're going to do is these are going to be list. Well, this is going to be a pagination result of book. And in fact, it's going to be a paged service result. And this is what I mean about not needing to nest the pagination result here at the definition level. It's wrapped at the type level. Not that I didn't mean to say not at the definition level. Paged service result. Book, get by author. Page service result, get by ISBN, and then here this would just be the service result book. And then I don't think we should ever have a void method in the service layer. Not a public void method. We always want to know something happened, right? It's always good to have some type of response. So when we add, let's say that we get what's the primary key on a library asset? It's an int. So when we add, let's just put the int back. Tim goes deeper into the hows and whys. I should do that more. I tend to gloss over the hows and whys, and I kick myself for it because I realize that I just kind of blaze through projects on YouTube and maybe don't spend as much time as I should explaining the thought process. First live session of library management systems on ToDev. Yes, this is the first, potentially the last live stream of doing the library management system. Kind of just did this on a whim. I felt like prying the project open to make some updates to it, and I thought, why not live stream my swing at this? So now what we're going to do is return a task int, and what's it mad about? Service result int. Oh, that's right. Task service result, not a page service result, but a regular one. Of an int. Now what's it mad about? Oh. Whoops. Yeah, these are all async now. And the next change I would like to do is to pull these entity models out. I don't want to use entity models in the response. I want to use DTOs and map them. So here we can await save changes async, and then return newbook.id, I believe. Oh yeah, return a new service result. Type int. The data is newbook.id. So now, this is what I meant. The first part, that I want my services to always respond with service result types. That way whoever writes a client of the service layer will know what to expect by design, at least in shape of response, which is important. And this is book to a service result. Yeah, so we can say var book is this thing. Context.books first or default async, where the ID matches the ID that we pass this method. I feel like I say that so many times in this series, even though it was a long time ago. I feel like I said that a lot. All right, and then the data on this case is, of course, that book. And this, I should not shadow the outer variable name. You guys ever played the game GeoGuessr? I'm going to take a 4 to 5 minute break to try GeoGuessr. Some people actually stream this. I'm streaming this now, I guess, now that I think of it. But I like taking a break now and then to play this trivia game. So the idea, if you haven't seen it, let me know if you guys have ever played this before. This is actually pretty fun. Is it's going to drop us in a random location in this map on Google Maps, and then we have to guess where we are. And we get more points the closer we are to our guess. So I'm going to play very short rounds here. So there's 5 rounds, so this shouldn't take more than about 5 minutes, a minute per round. Okay, so this looks like Southeast Asia. And we only have a minute to guess where we are. So we're heading on a road that's east and west. If I had to guess, I would say Southeast Asia. A lot of times. Okay, so there's some English on the, it helps to see the language. Steelworks. Patrick Show. So I'm not sure that we are in Southeast Asia anymore. We could be in Hawaii. No, maybe. I'm still guessing Southeast Asia, but where is the question? Not much time left. 10 seconds left. I have no idea. I guess Philippines. I'm probably way off. Oh, we might be Malaysia. I'm not sure. We were in the Philippines. I was 285 kilometers, so not bad. All right, next round, 2 of 5. This, to me, looks like South America. This is in Brazil, because that's Portuguese. We're heading south on a road. I don't see too many mountains, but I'm almost certain that we're in Brazil. Looks like maybe eastern, southeastern Brazil. We're gonna guess with 20 seconds left that we are, how far away are we? Don't know. Let's say that we're around here. Hey, food is love is life. Happy 4th to you as well. Taking a 5-minute break to play GeoGuessr. I'm pretty sure that I'm in Brazil. Brazil's a huge country, but I was close, not really close. 960 kilometers away, but we had the right country, and we were in an adjacent state, so I consider it a partial win. This looks like the U.S. Where in the U.S.? I'm not sure. Maybe in the Pacific Northwest. Tarcisio says that it is Brazil, and we were close. We were so close. This looks like the U.S. to me. It looks like either the U.S. or Canada, and it looks to me like the Pacific Northwest, but there are a lot of places in the U.S. that look like this. I just know that we're in the northern United States somewhere, and there's a sign over here. Oh, there's no time left either. There's 24 seconds. Medway, Bangor. Isn't that Maine? All right. Maybe we're in the... Pretty sure there's a Bangor, Maine. Look at that. We're going to be so close. There's also probably other Bangors in the U.S. We're out in the country, so we're not on a main highway, but we're going to see how close we are. Oh, man. Super close. Not super close, but 43 kilometers. Not too shabby. Luckily we came across that sign. All right, round 4 of 5. Some beautiful mountains. Are these the Alps? Are we in... They look a little too round to me, but I think we're in Europe. There will be video updates on the library project update. In fact, that's what I'm technically trying to stream right now. But I'm taking a short break to play GeoGuessr. I think we're in the Eastern Europe. Not too far east. There are some beautiful mountains in the background. I want to say Slovenia. I could be totally wrong. No, this looks more like... Maybe it's near the Austrian border. Goodness. Austria, Slovenia. I could be wrong. Tarcisio from Sao Paulo. Not Slovenia, but Bulgaria. I was really far away. Nice. How do you like Sao Paulo? I would love to visit Brazil someday. It looks like a beautiful country. It's a huge country, so I'm sure there's lots of it. So that is definitely Japanese. And luckily we got a sign that had some kanji and katakana in it. Question is, where in Japan are we? Japan also not a large country, pretty large, just a lot of islands. So it's going to be hard to tell exactly where we are. Unless, well, there's not really an unless. I'm not going to be able to read the signs in Japanese, unfortunately. 20 seconds left. Okay, I'm going to guess we're in Hokkaido because I see lots of farming signs that suggest there's farms, but I could also be way off. All right, we're going to say we're near... Goodness, we could be in Okinawa, which would be way far south, but... Oh, no, we're actually just outside of Tokyo. Not bad. All right, see you later, food is love. Sorry if you came for coding and I'm taking a break on GeoGuessr right now. Yeah, such a big place. All right, let's get back to some coding. I should play more GeoGuessr and get better at my geography. So we are building this task result. We're going to also have a task of a paged service result book. Likewise for this guy, task, page service result book, get by author, var books is equal to context.books, return new paged service results, book, data models.books, task. Here we need to implement our pagination. Tip, start for northeast. I will keep that in mind. Let's look at a map really quickly. So it looks like Rio de Janeiro is in the southeast, right? Belém, Fortaleza, Salvador. Ah, Sao Paulo is down here as well, huh? Another place I'd love to visit is Chile. in Argentina in the mountains. But look at how big Brazil is, man. This is a huge country. Probably produces most of the world's oxygen in the rainforests. What a big country. All right. So we need to do our pagination here. Our data is Ben's from Northeast Brazil. Pernambuco. I'm not sure if I said that correctly. Fortaleza, Salvador. I'm not sure how to say the Recife. Recife? Sao Paulo is in the southeast. I need to learn Portuguese. All right. Page service result. Books. This is going to be the paged books that we eventually build. We implement pagination. I'm just trying to get the method signatures up to date with the new format. Var books is context books where the author contains author. All right, Big B, it's always good to hear from you. I'll see you soon. See you next time. Most of the world's oxygen is produced in the ocean. Today I learned something new. All right, so I need to do this implementation in all these cases. And what's the problem here? Oh, I need to make all these async as well. And I think rather than say context.books, can't I say books is, like if I did a private read-only, what would I typically do here if I was using a repository with EF, if I was using the repository pattern? I think I would say that this was a DB set of book. Sorry, wrong place. DB set of book. Books. And then books is I kind of already did that with context, but I could do context.set of book, right? And then if I wanted to make this async, here I'm just gonna, that is kind of a shortcut, I guess. Not a shortcut, it's another way of doing it. What I could do is say context.books. I could await to list async here. And do something like this. So get this queryable. And then execute the SQL asynchronously. SQL statement execution asynchronously. And then likewise here, async task. page service result book. And then it's going to be almost the same thing. What I could have done here is, well, coulda, woulda, shoulda. Let's see, 08 context.books where dot to list async. What I could have done is made a generic expression and then pass the expression to this method whenever I wanted to get some property on it, rather than just have multiple methods that are all very similar. Chunk. All right, let's see here. All these I definitely need to implement pagination, and I also need to make book DTOs. So what time is it? 10:27. I'll go for like another half an hour. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks for dropping in. Let's just add a new class called book DTO. This is going to be pretty isomorphic to a book itself. So if we look at the data, the entity model, the goal here now is to remove the dependency of the data layer entirely from the web layer by using this service layer as a buffer between the two, where all of the serialization and business logic occurs. Book. Alright, so our book DTO looks very similar. In fact, as I said, it's isomorphic to the data model. Now when we come back into book service, iBook service, when we're talking about books in the service layer, we're talking about book DTOs. Unless we're talking to the data layer. And I missed one. Didn't I miss one? Yeah, so now when our controller calls add a book from the post method in the controller, well, we're not talking API anymore, but we're talking controller route, which would be a post request if this was a REST API. When it's coming from the presentation layer, it's just talking about something that maps to a book DTO. Service layer is going to be in charge of mapping that as it sees fit, including when it's talking to the data layer. And so now, anywhere we have a book, we're actually talking book DTO. For the time being, we'll use AutoMapper to map. Whew, and I'm starting to run out of steam here. Does anyone here, if anyone is here, does anyone play chess on something like chess.com or Lichess? All right. Yeah, when we get a book, we want to actually return the DTO. What I'm going to do is write this out and say to do here. My book service, what are we missing? Book service.add. Oh, I see. We'll still have to use the data layer. Oh, and that's the other thing here. We need a We need all of the properties that are on the base model. So should I make a base model DTO that all these inherit from? I think reaching for inheritance immediately always leads me astray. So I think what we'll do is instead we will look at the base model library asset. We will it's almost certainly useful to have a library asset DTO base class, but before we make any rash decisions there, I'm going to just start simple and extract if necessary. Alright, I think as soon as these models are done, I'm going to call it a night. Status DTO, library branch DTO. Alright, so I'm going to manage NuGet packages here, and we're going to add AutoMapper to our service layer, AutoMapper 10. No, sorry, to our service layer, manage NuGet packages, AutoMapper library.service. And then we'll use AutoMapper to map between entity models and our DTOs, which will float around the application as needed. And we can let our entity models live in peace in the data layer, where they belong. They will leak into the service layer only to be mapped into a DTO that the service can then talk to its clients about. Alright, I think that's going to wrap it up for this evening. Start DTOs, update controllers, and when I make a follow-up video about the library management system updates, it will be with all of the changes that we kicked off this evening, and I will also have finished the remaining tasks that I have here, and